For joining. My name is Celia Cody-Crease. I'm here from Food Forward, and I'll be talking about the work that we do, some kind of issues about food waste and food insecurity, and then also a little bit about food justice and how these are all connected. So feel free to ask any questions throughout the presentation. You can put them in the chat, and you can also just unmute yourself and ask a question. So Food Forward is a nonprofit organization here in Southern California. We fight hunger and prevent food waste by rescuing fresh surplus produce, connecting this abundance with people in need, and inspiring others to do the same. We do this work because, according to the NRDC, up to 40% of food in the United States is wasted. And at the same time, 1 in 9 Californians lacks adequate access to food. So we present a simple solution to these two issues by connecting surplus fresh fruits and vegetables with people experiencing food insecurity in our communities. And food recovery is really a win-win solution because we're redirecting perfectly good and healthy food from the landfill, making sure it doesn't go to waste, and also making sure that people who need it can use it and can be nourished by it. We do our food recovery with our volunteers and staff who collect fresh fruits and vegetables that would normally go to waste from backyard fruit trees, public orchards, farmers markets, and the downtown LA wholesale produce market. And 100% of this produce is donated to over 1,800 hunger relief agencies across 8 counties in Southern California. So we have about 35 staff members. We engage about 4,000 volunteers most years, not this year for obvious reasons. And we're really kind of a connector. So we do some distributions ourselves, which I'll talk about later, but primarily what we're doing is getting food from sources where it would otherwise be wasted and connecting it to other organizations, food banks, food pantries, tons of different organizations, some of them that have a wide range of social services, and providing them with a free source of nutritious food that they can pass on to their clients. So we work in Southern California. We actively recover food in Los Angeles and Ventura counties, a little bit in southern Santa Barbara County. We go up there and pick a lot of mandarins when they're ripe. We have workspaces in North Hollywood, Ventura, and then in Bell, which is where our produce pit stop warehouse is. That houses our wholesale recovery program. So that's where we actively work, but our produce reaches all 8 counties in Southern California. So a little bit about our 3 produce recovery programs. Food Forward started with the Backyard Harvest program. So our origin story is that our founder, Rick Namias, who's also our current executive director, he was walking his dog in his neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley, and was just noticing all these fruit trees that were dripping with ripe citrus fruit, and the fruit was falling to the ground and going to waste. And this was also kind of in a similar time in our country that we're in now, in 2009, right after the Great Recession. And a lot of people were out of work. A lot of people were struggling to pay their bills, to have enough money after they paid their rent and other bills to put food on the table. So he really saw this as just kind of these 2 issues, that there was a mismatch and there could be some solution. So he just got some friends and neighbors, and he got people off Craigslist to volunteer, and did a harvest of his neighbor's yard, and gathered about 800 pounds of tangerines and donated them that day to a local food pantry. So that was kind of the birth of Food Forward. And in that first year, they harvested 100,000 pounds and distributed them to hunger relief agencies. So now the Backyard Harvest program does the same thing, goes to people's fruit trees. They let us come onto their yard, they register their property, and they donate their fruit to us. We also pick at large properties. So for example, the Huntington Gardens out in San Marino, they have beautiful orange groves and persimmon trees. So we harvest those. We go to CSUN, we harvest their orange orchard. We go to Franklin Canyon in Beverly Hills. So several large properties where we can get, 50 volunteers out in a day and harvest, tens of thousands of pounds of produce. So yeah, in 2019, we harvested over 350,000 pounds of fruit in LA and Ventura County. And we harvest anything that grows here in Southern California, which is quite a lot. A ton of citrus, oranges, grapefruits, lemons, tangerines, kumquats, limes, as well as avocados, pomegranates, persimmons, apples, sapote, guava, lots of stuff. And we even have a volunteer in Ventura County who grows vegetables at a community garden and picks them and donates them all to us, which is amazing. So our next program is Farmers Market Recovery. This was started in 2012 at the Santa Monica Farmers Market. Basically what we do is we collect donations from vendors. Whatever produce they didn't sell and they want to donate to us, they can donate and get a tax deductible receipt. And we get that out to local hunger relief agencies. So before the pandemic, we were at 25 markets every week in LA and Ventura counties. Big markets like Santa Monica Wednesday and the Hollywood Farmers Market, as well as smaller markets like Mar Vista Farmers Market, or I don't know, some of the ones in Ventura are kind of small. So it really depends on how big the market, but we can get up to 2,000 pounds or more of fruits and vegetables in a single glean, as we call it. So we have volunteers who go around the market, ask vendors for donations, and then box and weigh them and get them out to hunger relief agencies. So this is really amazing because this produce is all super fresh, super local. A lot of it is organic. And it's really a win-win for the farmers. They don't have to deal with discarding it. They know that it's going to someone in need and they get a tax write-off, which is great. So in 2019, this program, we were able to recover over 700,000 pounds of produce. And yeah, it's a really great way for volunteers to just see their farmers market in a different way and get involved in their community, and they can come back every week if they want. So our final program, which started in 2014, is our wholesale produce recovery program. This is our biggest program by far by volume. We recover millions of pounds of food in a year, several million pounds a month. So basically our wholesale recovery drivers go in one of those trucks, as you can see there in that first picture. They go to the wholesale produce market in downtown LA really early in the morning, and they accept donations by the truckload, pallets like this photo on the far right, of fruits and vegetables that would otherwise get thrown away, often because of just cosmetic issues. They might have a scratch or a bruise, or sometimes it's because of oversupply. So for example, we got a call to recover a bunch of cranberries in December because after Thanksgiving, no one wants fresh cranberries anymore. So there were just all these cranberries that the shipment arrived late and they were going to get thrown away because grocery stores didn't want them. So we can come in and recover those cranberries. And then sometimes there's just one literal bad apple in the bunch. There's one box that's kind of gone bad, but the rest of the pallet is fine. And so we can get rid of that one box and redirect all that good produce to a hunger relief agency. So prior to 2019, we did this program with just trucks and just getting the produce from the wholesale market directly to hunger relief agencies, generally larger agencies like food banks that can really handle a full truckload of produce. But last year we opened up the produce pit stop, which you can also see in that first photo. This is our first ever warehouse space. It has a giant walk-in refrigerator. It has a ton of dry storage space, loading docks, workspaces for our staff. And this allows us to really just recover more produce, to provide more variety to our partner agencies, to provide them more options for picking. They can come directly to us to pick up. So it's been a huge help to the program and just allow us to really grow. And so last year we were able to recover 25.5 million pounds with this program alone. And this year, thanks to this program, we reached our 100 millionth pound, which is really exciting. So the people we work with, our agency partners, we work with, as I mentioned, over 1,800 both direct and indirect agencies across Southern California. So we donate directly to about 200 partners, and then they will redistribute to, if it's a food bank, they might redistribute to 50 or 100 smaller food pantries. And these are folks that really run the gamut of all social service sectors. So again, some of these partners are doing just food distribution, and some of them are transitional housing for, you know, folks out of homelessness, and that also have food programs, or after school programs. We donate to Boys and Girls Clubs and YMCAs. So really, we kind of are lucky to work with just so many different amazing organizations that are doing such a wide variety of work, and we get to support them with just free produce that, you know, they don't have to worry about paying that extra cost to get, you know, fresh food, which often costs more than canned food or dry food, and they can, you know, pass that on to their clients. Our agencies generally either do a direct, you know, either farmers market or bagged distribution, so they're giving their clients food to cook with. But, you know, depending on their clients' needs or their clients' access to, you know, a kitchen, they also might cook hot meals or deliver hot meals. And all of our partners are nonprofits or affiliates of nonprofits, or partners of like a broader nonprofit, and also distribute food 100% free of charge. So we don't ever, no one ever has to pay for food from Food Forward. So as I mentioned, we've been around since 2009. We've recovered over 100 million pounds of fruits and vegetables, which is a crazy number to me. And that's in 11 years. And so in that first year, as I mentioned, we recovered 100,000 pounds in 1 year. And that's before the pandemic. We were basically doing that in a single day. So we were averaging 500,000 pounds a week. So we've really grown exponentially and just been able to recover and distribute more and more. Yeah, I think I ran through all these stats, but this is a bit about our impact. So since COVID, we've had to, as most organizations and companies had to do, we've had to kind of shift things around a bit to make sure that everyone is safe. Our community volunteer events, normally we have groups of volunteers coming out to pick a fruit tree or glean at a farmer's market. So our community volunteer events have been paused, but we do have our trained event leaders who were, you know, trained before the pandemic that are still able to go out and either harvest a fruit tree or glean a market. So they have been just volunteering and picking, you know, up a storm and gleaning up a storm. And so that's been really amazing because we've been able to kind of continue at a similar rate of food recovery that we were doing before the pandemic. And we're now back at 11 markets a week. So we're not at our full 25, but we're still getting to, you know, 11 of the kind of bigger markets, the markets that obviously have opened and are have, you know, all the COVID safety protocol. We also are participating in the USDA Farmers to Families Food Box Program. So this is a federal program that is essentially providing grants to food producers and distributors to make sure that their food isn't going to waste. So we have some of our wholesale vendor partners receive these grants, and were paired with us to basically donate these boxes of produce, of fruits and vegetables, to us, and we then distribute them to our partner agencies. So this photo in the bottom photo is from the LA Dream Center. They've been receiving, you know, 700 boxes a day on some days of these fruit and vegetable mixed produce boxes, and they do a drive-through distribution, and, you know, each family goes home with a box. And they have about 20 pounds of food, so it's really 15 to 20, so it's really awesome. It can last a family a week. So we've been participating in that program, and that's been really amazing and allowing us to just distribute a lot more food. Now they're doing these combo boxes, which are also have meat, protein, and dairy, which is interesting for us because we've never done that before. But we're kind of just doing it for this USDA program, and then once it's over, we're going to stick to fruits and vegetables again. But yeah, that's been really great to participate in because we can just really amplify our impact and reach even more people. So thanks to that program and just our overall kind of increase in recovery, our wholesale program has been distributing an average of over 1 million pounds a week, which is really bonkers. So yeah, the pandemic has really just allowed us, it's not obviously not a good thing, but we've been able to really step up and just meet the need and recover a lot of food and distribute a lot of food, which is really necessary because we hear from our partners that, you know, they're seeing up to 3 times, 4 times, 5 times the number of people coming to their regular food distributions. And that's just kind of across geographies. You know, as we all know, everyone is being affected by this and is needing extra support right now. So that's kind of the bit about Food Forward and all the work that we do. So if there's any questions at this point, just a bit more about our work, I can answer them now, or I can also answer them later. Cool, okay. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about food waste. Food Forward defines food waste as edible food that is grown or produced but not consumed. And as I mentioned, the estimate is that up to 40% of our food supply is wasted, which I won't rattle these all off, but as you can see, that's a ton of waste any way you measure it, whether it's volume or money or calories, it's a ton. And I think this last stat is kind of the most shocking to me, that 20% of everything we put in our landfills is food, which is the biggest category if you look at any other material. So food waste happens along the whole chain of production, from when a food, you know, from when the seed is planted to when it makes its way to our house. But as you can see by this kind of graph breaking it out, the vast majority, over 80%, happens at the retail level and at the consumer level. So the retail level is where we come in at the wholesale distribution level. Our wholesale produce recovery program is able to intercept that waste and redirect it. And then there's a ton of waste that happens just in our own homes, you know, things that we forget in our fridge, things that we're, you know, throwing away instead of composting, which is actually kind of good because it means that there's a lot that individuals can do. So here in Southern California, and in California in general, we are a very abundant state and region. We produce 13% of the US food supply by economic value, over a third of the vegetables and 2/3 of fruits and nuts. And the wholesale market that we recover at is the largest, by some estimates, by volume in the whole country. And that's also because of, you know, the ports here in LA. There's a ton of produce that's also coming in from South America, Central America, and all over the world that comes into LA before it goes out to other places. So there's just a ton of abundance here. And also the historic orchards, which is why there's so many fruit trees here in Southern California that Food Forward can recover produce from. You know, if you've ever seen those old, like Southern California, like fruit labels or postcards, there's tons that are like the citrus, I don't know, they're very like citrusy themed and sunshiny, but that's when people first settled here. When, you know, white people, Europeans first settled here, they grew citrus trees. And there was a huge boom, and a lot of those trees just ended up in people's front yards. So yeah, there's a ton of abundance here. So that's kind of the food waste portion, and that also connects to food security and food insecurity. So food security just means that you have enough reliable access to enough good, healthy, and culturally appropriate food. And conversely, food insecurity is not having that reliable access. Across the board, if we look at the United States, California, and Los Angeles, 11% of households are food insecure, are classified as food insecure. And here at LA, that's over 1 million people. So this is a huge issue. It affects a ton of people. And it's obviously gotten worse since the pandemic. By some estimates, we're at 25% in California. Food insecurity doesn't affect everyone the same. So basically, folks who are generally more marginalized and experiencing systems of oppression are more likely to experience food insecurity. So people of color, BIPOC folks, low-income communities, those experiencing homelessness, LGBTQ plus folks, as well as students, children, families with children, veterans, and seniors. So this photo is actually was taken at LACC, and this is Heidi, and she used to be a Glean team leader and lead the farmers market Gleans at Larchmont, the Larchmont Farmers Market. And then she started doing her own food distribution. So she does I think her organization is called Team 10. I'm not sure if that's with the distribution, but she does like a pop-up distribution at LACC and distributes lots of fresh produce from the farmers market. Cool, I already talked about some of this, but yeah, food insecurity is obviously just skyrocketed since COVID. And really those already affected are more likely to be impacted by both COVID and the economic downturn, as well as the related food insecurity impacts. And our partners are just really experiencing a huge increase in need, which is a lot of them have been able to distribute more often and more food to meet that need. So these are obviously connected because if we produce enough food to feed everyone. If we were able to prevent 25% of global food waste, that amount of food would be enough to feed everyone suffering from chronic undernourishment, which is 870 million people globally. Obviously, it wouldn't happen like that. We would need to have the infrastructure and networks to distribute all that food. So it's not just about not wasting food. It's also about having, means to distribute it and distribute it equitably. But that just kind of gives you a picture of how these issues are really interconnected. In terms of the environment and climate change and climate justice, food waste has a huge impact. So first of all, everything that we put into producing our food is lost when we waste it. So our cropland, our water, the energy and fossil fuels that it takes to grow and harvest and transport all that food, as well as the labor. And then once we waste it, once we put it in the landfill, it releases methane gas, which as y'all probably know is really, really potent and much more potent than CO2 as a warming gas. And food waste accounts for 11% of all landfill generated methane emissions and about 6 to 8% of total global greenhouse gas emissions when you take into consideration like all of the impacts of food waste. So it's a huge environmental climate change issue. There's a really cool Project Drawdown, which has 100 different solutions to climate change of ways that we can implement different solutions that are relatively kind of already at our fingertips. And I think they rate at one point food waste was the #3 solution of just if we were able to massively reduce our food waste, the impact that would have on our ability to draw down carbon is really high. So connecting this all to food justice and climate justice, food justice is a holistic and structural view of the food system that sees healthy food as a human right and works to address structural barriers that people face to accessing healthy food. Connected to food justice is the idea of food sovereignty, which is that the people who produce, distribute, and consume food should have control over the mechanisms and policies of food production and distribution. And some of the barriers to people having food sovereignty and achieving food justice are things like food deserts or food swamps. Food swamps is like kind of a more new take on food deserts, which is that it's not just that there's not enough food, there's specifically a lot of unhealthy food, packaged food, processed food, alcohol, things like that. There's not, there's access to food, but it's mostly liquor stores instead of supermarkets or farmers markets. As well as the high cost of food and systems of oppression like poverty, like racism, that keep people, in a place where they can't access healthy food. So these barriers are often interrelated. And when we think about climate justice, the first thing that came to mind for me was, when you think about if a way to achieve food sovereignty, for example, would be to have a community garden like this photo. This is some of our staff and volunteers with one of our receiving agencies in their community garden, right? But if your soil and your water are contaminated because of environmental racism, then you can't really grow your own food because you might get sick from eating it. So, we can't really just tackle one problem without looking at all the problems. And then also, these systems of oppression perpetuate folks having less resources, less opportunity, and less time to pursue just alternatives. If you're busy fighting the, getting rid of the oil drill that's in your neighborhood, that's causing you to be sick and not be able to breathe, then you're not really going to be too focused on, advocating for a farmer's market to come to your community, because that's just not as pressing of a concern. So that's really something I think about a lot, that just part of the problem with these systems is that it just takes people's time and energy away from looking towards, better things. They're having to fight these things that are currently causing so much harm in their lives. And then also landfills. So all this food is going to landfills. Landfills most of the time are in Black and brown communities and are contributing to that unhealthy air. And they're filled with food that could be feeding people in those communities. So that's a very literal visual thing where it's just like this horrible thing is here and it's hurting this community, but it also contains this thing that could be supporting that community. The other thing is that the climate crisis is already and will continue to put a strain on our food system. So when we have droughts and fires and floods and storms, all those things make it harder for us to produce food. And the people who are generally hit hardest and first when those things happen are poor communities, communities of color, and communities, especially in the global South. So, it's all connected. So, not to be so doom and gloom, there's obviously solutions. So food recovery is, if we really invest in this infrastructure to ensure that there's an equitable distribution of our surplus food, we can kind of mitigate the impacts of the climate crisis on our food production. If we have reduced food production, but we're still able to distribute the food we do have, it won't be as much of a problem. And then also, I think just remembering that climate justice is food justice, is social justice. So these things are all intersecting and interconnected. So when we think about solutions, we have to think about them all together. And that, really community connection is the name of the game right now, especially in 2020. It's such a crazy year. We're seeing so many people really step up in their own communities to create food justice. So we're seeing things like community fridges, where people are just kind of super grassroots, just putting up a fridge and saying, hey, come take some food if you need it. So this kind of mutual aid work is really just about people coming together, seeing where there's a need, where there's a vacuum in their community and filling that need, and just building those relationships. So yeah, that's really inspiring and cool. So lastly, a little bit about food waste on the individual level and some, on the structural and individual level, some solutions there. So obviously food recovery is a solution. as well as consumer education, so educating people about things like date labels, which are arbitrary and don't necessarily mean if your food is good or not. Things like properly storing your food. Some things that individuals can do are create a shopping list when they go to the store and meal plans, so you're only buying what you need. Opting for local food, and also knowing your biggest waste makers. So for example, if you're going to waste a pound of beef, that's going to, you know, contribute to a lot more waste down that chain of production of all the water and, you know, everything that it took to produce that, than wasting a pound of potatoes or whatever. So really being conscious about what you're buying, and then also once you buy it, how you're using it. A couple other solutions that are really helpful. Keeping your fridge organized, putting the things that are most perishable or that you need to eat first kind of closest to the front of the fridge so you can see it. Utilizing your freezer, you can freeze like almost anything. I learned that you can freeze milk, which is, I didn't know that, but you can freeze milk in like ice cubes if you want to. But there's a ton of stuff that really can extend your the life of something by sticking it in the freezer. Growing your own fruits and vegetables, even if you just want to do like a herb garden in your windowsill or whatever, that's a great way to reduce waste. And then sharing and donating if you can't use it all. And then setting up an at-home compost or collecting your food scraps and dropping them off at a local compost, because, you know, there's obviously going to be some things that we can't eat. We can't use up everything, but we can, you know, put it towards the soil and it can still have a positive impact. Okay, that's my spiel. So here are all of our links and things if you want to stay in touch with us. So our social media links, if you want to get our newsletter, Fresh Juice, you can sign up there. You can also sign up for a volunteer newsletter if you want to stay updated about when we reopen. And the Crumb is like foodie events and foodie news. Volunteer again in the future, donate link, and then I drop my email. If anyone wants to email me, you can totally do so. And then lastly, I can also send this out if that's helpful, but here's some really great articles just about like more kind of individual food waste tips and tricks. And that's all I have. Thanks, guys. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Celia. If anyone wants to put any questions in the chat, we can give people a minute and see if anything pops up.
I share.
Hello. Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. Okay, well, while we're waiting to see, I'm kind of curious. So I know I've known you for a long time and I've actually been like vaguely familiar with Food Forward for a while. So just like based off of what I got out of your presentation, you guys work like exclusively on the distribution side of things. Do you guys do like any policy like advocacy work or any kind of education, you know, besides like these presentations when people request them? Is there any work on those things, or is it like pretty much strictly the distribution side?
Yeah, great question. I would say it's like 95% of our work is focused on just recovery and distribution. Sorry, there's like a leaf blower. I don't know if that's really loud.
Sign of the times. You're good, and we can hear you, so no worries.
Great. Yeah, we do these presentations. We obviously have a newsletter and, you know, pretty active social media. So we do kind of just like more general education, telling people about, you know, issues that are happening in this world, as well as like things they can do to reduce their food waste or to support people in their community. We also, we are involved with the LA Food Policy Council, which does policy work. So we are like connected with them. But yeah, we're really mostly focused on just recovering and distributing food. That's our primary
just is like the wrong word. Like that's you have a huge network and you're distributing to so many people, which is really awesome. Like I'm not discounting any of that. I was just a little bit curious. I also, so since we're on like the climate, I mean, obviously the topic of like climate justice and environmental justice, food access is kind of an issue like across the board. You said it like kind of knows no geographies, but I was curious, like, do you guys have any sort of like focus or prioritization on like EJ communities or like on food swamps or anything like that? Or is it, you know, at this point, like it's such an across the board sort of issue that it kind of just makes sense to distribute food wherever you kind of can. Um,
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there's kind of there's several ways to answer this. So we basically, any kind of data about who we're actually serving has to come from our partner agencies, and that like we've tried to look at like what's the like demographic breakdown of who we're serving, but because we rely on each individual agency to provide us that data, it's a really complicated and big lift. But in terms of like geographically reaching out to different communities, one thing that we've done is, which I actually didn't talk about in the presentation, but we have our produce pickup program, and then we also have something called rapid response hubs. So the produce pickup program is kind of the one time that we are more involved in the actual distribution to individuals. So that started in 2017, and we started in Watts with the Watts Labor Community Action Committee, WLCAC, which is a really awesome community-based organization there. And then we also, now we do one in Inglewood with SJLI, Social Justice Learning Institute. We do one in Simi Valley and in Fremont. So those all are working with the kind of this partner organization to do a either bagged or farmers market style distribution for the community. And those sites were chosen specifically because there is often not as many, those are areas where there's not as many like large food pantries or food distributing sites. And those organizations weren't necessarily doing that work before. So basically because of the partnership, they have kind of the community network and the relationships, and then we bring in the food. So that's one way that we're kind of filling a gap where there's not access to food. And then also these hubs. So before, we were calling them rapid response hubs now because we've really ramped it up in COVID, but we were doing it before the pandemic. So basically it's kind of, the model is that we connect with one organization that can stage like a truckload or two of produce. And then a lot of smaller local organizations come and pick up. So these are folks that can't necessarily take a full truckload from the produce pit stop. They can maybe fill a van or a car. And so that way we're able to, reach between 10 and 20 partners in a day with these kind of drops of a lot of food that then gets broken up. And again, that's like, there's not necessarily a food bank in that neighborhood that can do that kind of distributing to a smaller level. So those have also been set up strategically in areas where there's not quite the infrastructure for that kind of food distribution.
Amazing. That's awesome. That's super cool. I was also wondering if you could talk a little bit about what you do specifically, and maybe like how you got here, like what drew you, like all that fun stuff. Tell us about your journey.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I don't even know if I said my title. My title, I'm the Outreach and Communications Coordinator. So I do a lot of communications. I do our newsletter and our social media and press things, and then also outreach, things like this, but also volunteer engagement. So working with our volunteers and kind of helping manage all of the volunteers we have and all of that data. I have been at Food Forward for a little over 2 years, and like Chloe, I knew about it in college. I'd seen them on campus. Food Forward does some distributions at UCLA, which is where we went to school. But yeah, I was involved in kind of sustainability work in college. That's how Chloe and I know each other, and was really looking to get involved with an organization in Los Angeles that was addressing some aspect of sustainability. And I didn't really like super tap into food waste before I worked at Food Forward, but I had kind of done some zero waste things, and also I'm just very passionate about you know, social justice and kind of filling the gaps where there's not as much access to things that are human rights like food. So that's kind of what drew me to Food Forward.
Amazing, thank you. So obviously volunteer opportunities are fairly limited right now, but I was curious, are there opportunities for students to maybe intern with Food Forward or get involved in that kind of way at this point in time?
Good question. Our internships are somewhat limited right now because a lot of our interns are supporting us out in the field, so are helping us, you know, at farmers markets or at picks and things like that, and helping us manage volunteers as well. So those things, since those things aren't happening, there's slightly less opportunity for our interns to help us out. I'm not sure if we have internships we may have internships in the spring, I'll say that. So you can check our website, foodforward.org/interns or internships. But you can also go to foodforward.org/jobs. It's the same redirect. So that's a great way. And then other ways to get involved. We will eventually have volunteer opportunities. So I would definitely encourage folks to sign up for our volunteer newsletter, foodforward.org/freshjuice, click volunteer news. And that's a great way to just stay updated when we do have opportunities for people to train with us and get involved.
Amazing. Clarissa says, great presentation. Thank you for all the work that you do. If either of you would like to ask a question, that would be awesome. We can also go ahead and stop the recording. If you'd like to continue our conversation off the recording, I can give us a little bit, see if they respond. If they don't, I'll turn off the recording. But thanks so much, Celia. I love Food Forward. Another thing, if you're someone who has, obviously this is a time where most people don't have extra money to spare, but if you do, something that I do is I donate like $11 a month to Food Forward, and it helps, I believe, with like getting boxes of produce out to families. Mm-hmm. You probably know more about that.
So yeah, so our basically the math that we use is that $11 is 110 pounds. So our organizational org-wide cost to recover produce is 10 cents a pound. So for every pound of food, it costs us 10 cents to recover and distribute it. And so yeah, every donation, every dollar equals 10 pounds of food that goes out to someone in need.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And I was like talking to Celia about this earlier, but you also get like a really cool bandana if you donate. So just like fun things. It's really great. If you have like extra wealth to redistribute, that's an awesome thing to do. And this is an awesome organization to do that with. So yeah, but if you don't, you should definitely sign up for their newsletter and all that fun stuff. That's always, and share on social media when they have, you know, trying to reach numbers for funding and that kind of thing.
I'll also plug beyond, we love monetary donations. We're a nonprofit, so those are always appreciated. But also if you have fruit trees, if you or anyone you know has a fruit tree, you can donate your fruit and share your abundance. So you can either harvest it yourself, you can pick the fruit off the tree and box it up or bag it up or whatever works for you, and we can connect you to a Hunger Relief agency that's close to you. Or depending on various conditions, including just our availability and location and everything, we can send out volunteers to come harvest the fruit for you and get it to a local agency. So that's another way you can share and donate and give your abundance.
Amazing. Okay.
Can I ask a quick question before we
Yes,
sign off? Sorry, I was
please.
multitasking. You know,
No,
I
no.
was on a phone call when you called my name for a question. So,
I'm-
um,
Go for it.
just really quickly, I want to ask Celia, what do you think? What role do you think our colleges could be able to play in, if we were to explore some sort of like partnership or serve as some sort of host location or headquarters or distribution location for all the wonderful work that you're doing?
Yeah, so I think there are several opportunities to kind of partner and get involved. In terms of distributing food, we have other colleges we work with. I know we work with UCLA, Santa Monica College, USCI, I don't know, I can't remember the acronym. The State College, CS Channel Islands. Anyways, we work with several food pantries at colleges, so definitely an opportunity to just be a partner in terms of just donating food for y'all to distribute if you have that kind of network already set up. Also, in terms of engaging students, we do have students that do like service learning or kind of like do like a service learning project with us where they can train to we've had students from UCLA who train to become Glean team leaders and then Glean the Santa Monica market. So they might do it, twice a month or something. So that's been a really great way that we get to partner with colleges. I feel like I had one other thought, but now I lost it. But I would say those are two good options to either we can work out a distribution or to have students volunteer.
Great, thank you so much. Thanks for presenting also. And I think Chloe let you know that we post all these online so everybody can have an opportunity to view later on. So we're just wrapping up this week, and then I think Friday's our very last one. Is that right, Chloe?
Yeah, last but not least, we'll be hearing from the Emerald Cities Collaborative. So, lots of cool, fun, big names this week. All of them have been great presentations. But yeah, I'm really excited. So yeah. Yeah.
Everyone for coming and asking questions, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for taking the time. It was really lovely to hear from you about all the work you do. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording really quick.